You are listening to the Forkman and Champ podcast. Make sure you sub now at iTunes, Spotify, and check them out on Facebook as well.
And g'day, and welcome to episode number 54 of the Forkman and Champ podcast. Unfortunately, the champ couldn't be with us tonight. He's kind of busy, and well, we did try calling Simo the lawnmower guy. He couldn't come on, but I did have a guest already organized. So right now, let's do a show with our guest, Bryan Madigan. Welcome back to the show.
Forkman, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. How have you been this year in 2021? The last time we spoke was just before Christmas.
Yeah, it was too. We were doing our little predictions and and stuff like that. Look, 2021, it seemed to start off really, really well, and then especially for us here in New South Wales, it went south quite quickly. So, I don't know how long we've been in lockdown now. Probably 6 or 7 weeks, I think it is, or I don't know anymore.
Something like the start of June or something, or middle of June, or something like that.
Something like that, yeah. There was a soft lockdown sort of in the beginning, and then it spiraled out of control, and we are full blown lockdown. What are you going to do?
Yeah, and then Uncle Dan returned here after his time off work due to his supposedly falling down the stairs.
Well, that's a story, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's come back.
He come back and he's like, the stabs that he been giving your premier. I'm like, hang on a minute. You were in this boat 12 months ago, and you weren't taking anybody else to the fight.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think with the lockdowns, they have become so politicized that the premiers from pretty much every single state have decided to use it as a look, we're doing this better than you. And, one state's taking a stab at the other state. Like New South Wales isn't innocent in all this. She was, saying her things when you guys were in your horrible lockdowns last year that were extremely strict. I think she was gloating about how she had the gold standard and, that she would never become like Victoria's lockdowns and all that sort of stuff. So none of them are innocent in all of this. I just wish they would stop using it as political points against each other to say, look at us, Scotty, we're doing better than the other one.
Yeah, but and ain't they like in the same party? I'm sure, like both Labor or.
No, I'm glad he's part of the Liberal.
Okay, yeah. For some reason, I thought he was Labor.
No. They're all over the shop, so
it's hard to tell.
All the political parties, they're all having their stabs at each other as well, and that's what is annoying me the most is that it's become so politicized that that's what's now lost in all of this.
Yeah.
Like our party's doing it better than you, our state's doing it better than you, we're doing this better than you, we're doing that better than you. And frankly, I think the Australian public is just sick of it.
Yeah, no, I've got to admit, I kind of tune out of the news now whenever a story about the fires come on. I'm like, no, I'm not listening to that. I'm not watching that because they all stabbing one another in the back. I'm better than you. You're better than no. We're better. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah, I think the entire public, especially in New South Wales and Victoria, have got COVID fatigue. I think the other states are, they're doing okay with it. Queensland had their little mini lockdown that they managed to get out of quite quickly. So they're doing okay. And now there's talk about how it's close to Byron now, and they're going to have to, shut the border from there. Like you said, anything that comes on, especially with any sort of mainstream media outlet, I just see it as that they're fear mongering and they're just, doing it for clicks basically. So I don't pay attention to anything that they say.
Yeah. Well, I get if you want to be anywhere at the moment that is basically COVID free, would be down in Tasmania.
Yeah, I mean they've got that benefit of being, so isolated from us. They can easily stop the boat and the plains, and they can get along quite easily. So they've got it pretty good down there. Although uh, the only thing that I wouldn't like being there is how cold it would probably be there right now. But I'm sure they're doing fine.
Yeah. the the cold could be a good thing actually.
Well, I mean, depending on which expert you listen to and which scientists you believe, they, from what I read, is that the sun is the best thing. And at the moment in New South Wales, we've got lots and lots of sun, even in winter, but they're still discouraging people from going outside for exercise. It's just something I don't understand.
Yeah. Like if the scientists are saying the sun is better,
Yeah,
you gotta get
outdoors,
vitamin C.
vitamin D
Yeah.
is they've all sort of said that it helps. Yet they're arresting people. Well, not in New South Wales, but they were arresting people for going walks in Brisbane. It's getting a bit too crazy.
Yeah. We'll move along now. The Olympics this year, they were nice. Did you see any?
You know what? Didn't watch a single minute.
I thought you were gonna say that. I'm trying to remember. Would Odie / Brian an Olympic fan, or was he more of a?
I think, geez, I always sort of looked at it in the peripheral, and when we won golds and all that sort of stuff, I was like, yeah, good on them, well done, they've trained really hard. And I don't know what it is about this year, but I just did not care. And I know I should, like
Yeah,
our athletes they did relatively well. I think they finished on what, sixth or
yeah,
fifth.
sixth or fifth one of them.
Yeah, that's the only thing that I kept an eye on. I kept an eye on the medal tally, and I noticed that they were doing pretty well, keeping up there with, especially with China and the United States, to remain for quite a while. They were in the top five, and then they just slipped out into the top six. I was stoked for the people individually, but there was just something about this year that it just didn't feel like an event
Yeah,
because
there were no crowds.
you, yeah, well, that's it. People couldn't go, so it lost all interest for me.
But then I gotta say, at the soccer, they did have some school kids in there.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, and I'm like, hang on a minute, they said no crowds, but then you have school kids in there.
mm, I don't know. Maybe
Yeah, no. Apparently they were from like a boarding school or something.
okay, they must have gotten some sort of special provision. That they can only be on one side of the stand and they can't come within, 50 feet of the players themselves. Who knows?
Yeah, but I'll be like, hang on a minute, there's a little content this week. You're gonna let kids in, but you don't let other spectators in.
Yeah. Well, look, something that I did take notice of. One, I mean, I'm not big on TikTok or anything like that, but I know a lot of the what do you call them? The athletes are. One of them did release a video showing what it's like living in the village. That part sort of interests me. And they're showing
I gotta say, did they show the beds?
no, she wasn't showing the bed. She was showing the athlete village food hall, which was something I never really thought about. How they were fed while they're there. Initially in my mind, I just assumed it would be like just being in a hotel. Like room service would come and drop off your meals and all that sort of stuff. But it's this massive, massive hall, and all around the perimeters of it is all different types of cuisine. And the athletes just rock up, and if they feel like Chinese food for one day, they can grab some Chinese. If they feel like some Italian or whatever, they can go grab some Italian food. There's fast food out, obviously. There's Maccas and all that sort of stuff. There's a mini Maccas in there, and it's all part of their life while they're there for those couple of weeks.
And I'm taking it they would all socialize somehow, even if they like you're not gonna like be rude if someone said hi to you.
Yeah, well, I think when they first walk through the door, then they have to sanitize and then put on a pair of really quickly disposable gloves. And then I think they sat down at a table which was sort of separated by plexiglass and all that sort of gear. So they could sort of see each other and they could talk to each other, but they'd have to obviously like raise their voice quite a bit because they're talking through a mask. Once they finish their feed, they'd have to take the gloves off, put it in the bin, sanitize again, and then, put another pair of gloves on, and then they would have to leave.
Wow,
So
so they had to eat with their gloves on.
I think so, yeah. From what I remember seeing it was so regimented that, once they grabbed their food and they ate with that food, that pair of gloves would have to come off, and then they'd have to put on another set just to continue on and leave. And I even think that the mask that they were wearing when they first got in, they'd have to take that off and be put aside because they need to eat. And then when they're finished eating, they put on a brand new mask as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Can you imagine them like going down to the local food hall to get a feed and having to glove up?
Well, as what you were saying a second ago, like how they're socializing, I don't think it's a socializing that we're probably all used to hearing the stories about from previous Olympics. I think they cracked down on that quite heavily.
Yeah, they also had different beds this year.
Yeah,
they used some kind of recyclable.
Yeah, I did see one of the videos from one of the guys, and he sort of took apart his bed and he showed it, and yeah, it just looked like very hard
cardboard,
particle type board.
Yeah,
that they use.
In the last podcast, the champ and I spoke about it, how they had a bonk ban this year.
So they
say, yeah, they were like given condoms and like supposedly told not to use them. I'm like, okay, if they were told not to use them, what was stopping them from not using them in the first place and still bonking?
Yeah, I mean, none of it made sense, but still, at the same time, they had to be safe in regards to, it's like, well, we can't force them not to do these things, and we can try and implement a bed that apparently will collapse under the weight of two people. But I did see one of the gymnasts or something, even though they're not the heaviest people, but he was a bloke. He jumped on his bed and did a couple of flips on it, and it didn't collapse.
Yeah. Pardon me. So we've had you on the podcast a couple times now, a few times now, but I have never asked you, what kind of music are you into?
Well, being a kid of the 90s, my sort of formative music molding came from the grunge movement. Because that was around the 92, 93, 94 mark when it was massive. So I'm like 13 years old, and that's when I sort of really started discovering music. So that sort of genre stuck with me from there on out. Anything with guitars, bass, drums, and a good singer, I'm all about it. When I moved to the Gold Coast, when I moved to the Sunshine Coast and the Gold Coast to be a music director, I moved to a very heavy pop focused radio station, and I sort of had to put my personal music taste aside because the top 40 music at the time, it just wasn't the genre that was that everyone wanted to listen to. So in a sense, my music taste adapted to what I had to program for people and what they wanted to listen to. So I didn't mind it. I didn't hate it. But mind you, since I moved back and started working for Gold and WSFM, because they're so 70s and 80s, music balance, I've sort of rediscovered a love for that. They're not quite ready to jump into the 90s yet. Like, they're getting there. They're in there a little bit, but they're not fully there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, not fully there. Not quite.
So it's a wide ranging the current form of popular music. I don't get at all, and I don't like it either. I'm sure if I was to move into another top 40 station, I would learn to like it again. But you know, where I work, I've got the guys from Kiss just, you know, across the hallway, and I walk over there to talk to them. Sometimes I'm listening to what they're playing. It's like, Jesus, this is so bad. It's so bad. But you know, I'm listening to, you know, masters like Queen and Dire Straits and NXS and all that sort of stuff all day, where it's something that I calls requires talent.
Yeah.
Not to dunk on these people too hard, because you know most of the time they're sampling all that music for their own purpose.
Yeah. I gotta ask, being in the same building as Kiss, do you ever bump into Kyle?
I sort of bump into him every now and then, because I start later in the day, just for car park purposes, and you know my day starts at 10 o'clock. So there are occasions where he's not still on the air at 10 o'clock. So most of the days he's still going until 10 o'clock. But there's the odd occasion that they will finish up just before 10, and we'll just pass each other in the hall. Sorry, in the in the elevators. You know, I'm coming out and he's going in, and you know we just say g'day to each other. I mean, he wouldn't know me from a hole in the wall anyway. We
Yeah.
we met we actually met a long time ago when I was working for Triple M and he was working for 2 day. And I went up to the roof. I can't remember why, but he was up there on his own having a cigarette, and I can't remember when I was testing something out or something stupid. And I said g'day to him there, and you know we had a little chat for about 5 minutes, and he was actually he's a really nice guy. He loves the industry, and because he was asking me what I did, and he was, you know, super supportive of it, and he was, you know, he was cool.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna say didn't he just like recently just furnish someone's house?
Um, Look, I don't know exactly what happens because I don't really pay it that much attention to them. Like I see some of their stuff passing through on my socials. One of my good friends is the EP of the show, and you know, we try not to talk about work whenever we do chat.
Yeah.
Um, but I do recall seeing something about him furnishing a house for someone. I don't know what the story would be though. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I've from before a listener who, from memory, had done it rough, and they kind of saved his life.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah,
nice.
when he turned on the radio and they were on,
Oh, that's cool.
it stopped him from doing something that wouldn't.
I
Yeah,
understand. Yeah.
yeah.
Very cool.
But anyway, anyway. So, back to the music thing. We're gonna ask you've done music scheduling. Is that a hard job to do?
Um, so when it comes to music scheduling on a radio station, any radio station, basically what it is the simplest analogy I can sort of give you is putting together a jigsaw puzzle that constantly changes. Now, what I mean by that is, so we give every single song a different category. But it's not just one category. It's possibly 3 or 4 different categories, sometimes even more than that. Because we want to define what the song is. For example, is it from the 80s? Is it from the 90s? Is it from the 2000s, 70s, etc.? So that's just one of the categories. Is it a rock song? Is it a pop song? Is it a dance song? That's another category that we go through. How fast is the song? How slow is the song? It's another category. Is it a male? Is it a female singer? Another category. So once we've gotten all our songs and we put them in their categories, basically what we want to do is put the first song in, and whatever the next song is, it can't be the same as the one that was directly above it. So it can't be the same 4 categories or 5 categories. We say, well, if it's got categories A, B, C, and D, then the next song needs to be D, C, B, and A, if that makes some sort of sense.
Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
I don't want to have 2, you know, fast, loud rock songs straight back to back. I want to go on a sort of a roller coaster ride. I want to have, you know, all right, we're going to start on that fast, hard rock song. Cool. Then we might just dip down into, some Richard Marx, and then we might do a Kylie dance song, and then we might go down to an Elton John ballad, and then we might jump straight back up into something really, really fast, like, Better by the Screaming Jets. So every single hour that I schedule, I've got a blank slate, and whatever I put in that first slot, I've got to then make the rest of the hour work. Or sometimes I've got to figure, it's like, well, that's not going to be the best song to start off with. I've got to start off with this song because then the next hour comes through together. So every time I schedule an hour of music, like I said, it's like, all right, I've got a puzzle here. But as soon as I lay down that first puzzle piece, everything changes from what the puzzle looks like.
Yeah. And I guess then you also have to take into consideration if the state and they're doing any like promotions at that time too.
Yeah. Sometimes
like, say they were doing like the no repeat workday or something.
Yeah. But that won't really affect that too much because we know, we've got to play a song twice here. From we'll play it first in the 9 a.m. hour, and then we'll do it again in the 3 p.m. hour or something like that. But we do have occasions where the hour does get dictated by promotion that we might be doing at the time. Like we could be doing a promotion, something all about the 80s, 80s triple plays and stuff like that. So then we will say, all right, well, this hour must have, halfway through the hour, 380 songs from this year. So that sort of throws a puzzle out. And it's, people call up and they tell us what those 380 songs that they want, if they wanted to request it or something like that. So it can change depending on the promotion that we're running.
And that would be, I'm not too sure. But if like they're doing something like 3 songs where they can request them, is that like, did the person in the studio take care of logging those songs in, or
no? It's all, yeah. So if usually now, if you watch it, any radio station, if they're doing anything that comes to requesting music, they're pushing everyone through to the website because that benefits me. So what happens is people jump on the website, they go, yeah, I want to request this song, this song, this song. And then all that information gets spewed out to me. Then that way I can plan a couple of days ahead of what they want.
And then they
every now and then, just depending on what's going on. One of the jocks might run out of the studio and go, I just got this great caller. They were actually up, they were vibey, and they really, really wanted me to play this. And they'll tell me what the song is, and if it's within the realms of what the radio station is. So, like if Ugly Phil was to run out and go, I just got the greatest caller and he wants to request T-Pain, I'm not going to play it. There's no point. It's not in line with the radio station. But if it's if they requested some Queen song that's still fine, and I'll quickly look through my schedule and I go, you know what, yep, dude, it's cool, let's throw it in and we'll put it in.
Okay, so so hypothetically, with their birthday in lockdown, I'm gonna eat some clean. I want to break free.
Yep. Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. Exactly. So if Phil or Steve came running out and told me, that they wanted to hear that, then I just look through the schedule, and if we played the song the previous day in the same hour, I'm going to say no.
Yeah, but if wasn't in the same hour, you'll be like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, but
if it fits.
When the funny things about these jocks is when they get those calls, they want to do it straight away, and sometimes it can't be done straight away. And I'm say, can you we'll do it next hour, and they go, oh, okay, yeah, no worries. So it's possible.
And then when you're scheduling, do you allow for when like the jocks have to talk?
So what we've got is basically a pre-selected format. So we come to the decision a couple of times a year, when we decide to shake things up, we sort of move things around a bit. And so we say, all right, you're going to talk at the top of the hour. We'll let 3 songs go past and then you'll talk again. We'll let another 3 songs go past and then you'll talk again. So we format that out for them. But when it comes to my guys, I sit there and I say, look, I'm going to implement the standard format. If you don't want to talk into that song because you've got something that you want to talk about going to the song before it or the song after it, just do it. If you can make a great break out of it, I'd rather have you make a great break into a song that you really want to talk into, rather than being pigeonholed into you must talk here. I never liked that idea, and I think it gives the on-air announcers a lot more freedom to be creative with their hour that they have.
Yeah. And I'm guessing you would have learnt that being like from on air, when you were on air, being like what you would have liked too.
I never, yeah. I'm just trying to remember back. I never had that problem running a Gold because I was sort of second in charge there, and I implemented the same rule while I was there. There was times on the Gold Coast where they basically said you must talk into this song always, and if the song only had a 2-second intro, you've got 2 seconds to talk. So that I hated, because
2 seconds. Wow.
that was the rule. So you had, basically sometimes you'd have to talk like you're at the end of one of those commercials, and you would say to them, I said, guys, I can't do this in 2 seconds. And they just said, that's where you've got to talk. That's where you've got to talk. So it wasn't fun.
Well, yeah, nah. moving along now. So I'm not too sure. Have you ever been to, say, like Coles or Woolies, and have had something paid for by the person in front of you? Like a random act of kindness kind of thing.
I know what you're talking about. No, I have never seen that myself, and it's never happened to me personally. No. Has it happened to you?
Yeah. So during our first lockdown,
Mm.
when they had limits on grocery items like milk and whatnot, there was this family, this grandma and her 2 grandkids, and well, because they could only get 2 things of milk, they couldn't get a milk for their granddaughter. And then like I'd see them in the aisle, and I heard what they said, so they left. I wouldn't actually get there to get milk myself, but I got milk.
Yeah.
So I got them milk, and then this bottle of milk, and I waited at the front of the supermarket until they came out. I'm like, sorry, I heard you had this trouble being able to get the milk you needed. And I handed it to them, and then this grandma ended up giving me like a $20 note. I'm like, no, I can't take that. And she was like, no, take it. You did something for us, so I'm doing something for you.
Yeah, I wish. That's a really kind thing that you did there, and it's something that hopefully we can see a lot more of. And I don't know if it's going to happen currently in these sort of lockdown procedures, because whenever I go to the grocery store right now, the place that I go to, everyone just wants to seem to get the hell out of there as quickly as they can, because I think they're just completely over it.
Yeah.
So maybe post lockdown, when people are feeling a little bit more at ease, those little random acts of kindness, because I don't think we have those sorts of restrictions here currently. Not that I've seen where I am when it comes to, quantity that you're allowed to purchase. I think we had it initially when everyone went crazy and started stocking up on everything.
Yeah. During the big 2 lockdowns, they've had limits here, but then like suddenly they haven't had to like have admit limits, because people are like, back into lockdown, we're gonna have things.
Yeah, I think there was the initial panic of the first lockdown, especially for you guys, that everyone thought that they're actually not allowed out of their house at all, and the message was quite confusing to people.
Yeah.
So I think people panicked and thought, well, if I'm not allowed out of my house at all, I better go get all the toilet paper and all the milk that I can drink and all that sort of stuff and all the flour so I can start making baked goods. Then eventually, I don't think the reason why we've seen any of that stuff now is because, you know, our brightest minds that are in charge have said, yes, you can go to the grocery store to get your stuff. So I think everyone sort of chilled out.
And yeah. So now I'm gonna. Do you have any shout outs you want to give this week? Or
Any shout outs? Well,
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
not to shout out another podcast, but the Airheads podcast that Leroy Brown had me on a week or so ago, and yourself was probably much involved in getting me on there, so that was a lot of fun. So go listen to that after you listen to this. Go listen to that. Give that podcast a listen as well. Putting out the
Yeah.
good vibes there of when other people get shouted out, hopefully some come back in return.
Yeah, Airheads is, I must say, a really good podcast. I listen to it all the time. I get like some ideas
Yeah.
for what I do on like internet radio and whatnot. But now that and like with what you were sharing about scheduling, I'm probably gonna use some of that now when I'm doing my own program, when I schedule
Yeah.
my own music into the program I use.
Yeah, well, see, just going back to that scheduling thing, sometimes you can go a little bit crazy um, with your categories that you apply to the songs that you have, because you can break down, you know, you can break down a song so many different ways, and then if you implement too many rules, then it becomes almost impossible to schedule an hour. So you've got to put in a couple, but you can't make it too many. You just got to come up with just enough that makes scheduling an hour of music challenging, but not impossible.
And before I forget, you can also check out Bryan Madigan on his own podcast.
Yeah, we have a podcast. It's in a bit of a hiatus at the moment, and once the hiatus is done, I will address that uh, on our own podcast. But if you want to go check out some previous episodes, it's on Spotify, Apple, and all that sort of stuff. It's called Buer Media, Buer Media, Buer Media. If you want to
And
check
they
it
have set it up a really good way, different to other podcasts.
Yeah.
With
And it's on YouTube as well. But if you're into the audio version only, Spotify, Apple, and iHeart, and pretty much any of the audio platforms have it too.
Thank you for joining me today, Bryan. It's been awesome to have you again.
No, man, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Until next time, I've been Forkman. He's been.
Yeah, you can call me Madigan.
And stay safe.
Take care.
Awesome. Thank you.
No worries, man.